I'd love to introduce you to our new Clever Kitties 4x6 clear stamp set. For all you cat lovers out there, if you're like me, then you've really been looking for a set of stamps that you can show your love for your own furry little friend. There's a lot of different puppy sets out there. We have our own, the Preppy Pups. But you don't often find a lot of cute cat stamps. So that's what we tried to do, give you the most kitty fun in this set as we possibly could. In it we've got 4 cute cats. One is a sleepy kitty. We have just one sitting. We have a playful one. And then we have this one here, which is my favorite. He could be maybe meowing, doing the stereotypical cat singing on the fence. He could be doing it as my cat does and bugging you for food even though her bowl is full. She could be having fun with the yarn ball. You could set it right underneath this paw. A lot of different ways you can use the set. We also have 4 different sentiments that are really cute and coordinate perfectly with our Clever Kitties. So in the next part of this video, I'm going to show you how to color my favorite kitty just like I did here. Now there has to be like 100 different ways that you could color any one of the 4 kitties on the Clever Kitties set. Like I mentioned before, this guy here, he's my favorite. He just seems to have a lot of personality, which I find really fun. So I'm going to show you how I colored him up. Now if you'd like to have an idea of different ways that you could color your kitties, take a look at a site kind of like Google Images and do a search for cats, and you'll find a lot of different inspiration. So to color it, so to get started, the colors that we're going to need are E84, E87, E89, E49 for his dark brown portions, and then we've got R11 and R12 for his mouth and his nose. We have Y13 for his eyes, E40, E41, E42, and BV20 for the white portions. The BV20 will just be more kind of like a shade color. So I'm going to get started using the E84 just to kind of outline where I want the brown on him. So I want to know where I want to leave his white tummy and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to really roughly kind of outline it. Now he'll probably end up a little different than the example, but no 2 kitties are alike, so it doesn't really matter so much. So this portion here I'm going to leave white, so I'm going to go ahead and color in the rest. Now with coloring fur, you don't have to worry about getting your coloring very smooth because you're going to want to add plenty of texture. So the smoothness quickly goes out the window. Alright, next down here on his body, I'm going to color his leg. His little hips. I'm going to leave this portion, his whole tummy, white. And I like leaving the white paws too. I just think that's so cute. They have like their own little white boots. And then his tail. So that is the basis for our kitty. Now, he doesn't look very impressive right now, but that's okay. We'll add plenty of texture and shading. So next I'm going to grab E87 and I'm going to do a quick job of adding our light source. So I'm going to have my light source come from up here and down. So I'm just going to very quickly add where my shading would be and then give it a quick blend. Now I know you probably just said, well, if you're not worried about having it smooth, why are you going to blend it? And the answer to that is simply that just where I want the shadows isn't necessarily where I want my texture or how I want my texture. So, space first. Blend it again with our first color, E84. And let's go down to his body and do the same thing. Now there's a definite difference in the idea of adding texture and adding shading. And for fur you want to do both, which is why we're doing what we're doing now. If you do one and not the other, you might add some great texture, but he'll still end up looking flat because he doesn't have any shading to help give him shape. All right, give that a quick blend. And then I'm going to kind of do the process one more time with our E89. Especially hitting up the darkest portions. The little extra steps like this of laying down a better base is what will set your coloring apart from somebody else's. Make yours look more consistent and lifelike than someone else's. And blend him back together. I'm going to do that with E87 and then probably again with E84. And then we can add our texture. Alright. So, to add a good texture, you know that all the color that we've laid down right now is wet. So if you would like a more crisp texture, lay it down when it's dried. But if you want something that's a little more subtle and soft, go ahead and lay it down now while the color is still wet. I like something a little more crisp, so for right now I'm going to jump over to our white areas. I'm going to start with E40 and just kind of use that to add some texture in the white and to help set up some shading as well. Now white doesn't have as much going on in terms of color, obviously, since it's white. So adding shading in the right areas and adding texture will go a long way to making your whites look lifelike. And don't be afraid to add color in your white areas, because even though it is white, white does end up having a lot of color. It's just it's typically confined to its more shadowy portions. Just using very simple and kind of scribbly flicking motions with my E40 here. Once that dries, we won't be able to see it as well, but it will add a subtle dimension and texture. Now I'm going to start building up my texture in the white areas using E41 and then E42. Making sure to hit up the areas of shadow the most. Now to do this, you're going to use mostly just the very tip of your brush tip. It's a really good idea if you're not comfortable or familiar with different pressures on your brush tip to go ahead and practice. Practice makes perfect. Or, as I like to say, as good as I'm going to get. A little more shadow building here with E42. You can see that even though we're using what's essentially a very light brown here in the white areas, it still ends up looking nice and white. Because like we said, white does have color. It's just in the shadows. Now on his ears here, they kind of go backward, which is why you see me doing the flicks from the interior corners out, just to give it a look of depth. So next I'm going to grab my BB20 and add that to the most shadowy areas. It's a purpley blue, so it really gives the look of a cast shadow to your white. It's one of my favorite go-to colors. For shading. Alright, now I'm just going to take the E40, kind of very lightly go back over those areas that I just texturized. To me, that just brings the colors that we've added kind of together, and while it doesn't ruin the crispness that I like in my texture, it tones it down just that little bit to make it not look like it's floating on top of your image so much, but as a part of it. And that's just a personal preference, though. Alright. Let's grab real quick his mouth and nose. I'm going to start out with R11. I like this red because it's kind of a pinky orange red. And I think it just pairs up and matches really well to when you get that little pink cat nose. Trust me, I went and looked at a bunch of pictures and did my own color picking. Adding the line down the middle of the tongue because I think that's funny. Alright, and if you'd like to, you know, sometimes you get white cat and the interior of their ears look a little pink. You could take your R11 and just give it a couple little swipes in there too. So it's subtle and not overpowering, but you get that little bit of pink. Alright, now let's get back to his brown fur. I'm going to start again with E84. And I'm just going to think about first the direction of his fur. So from nose up, we'll go this way, and the sides come in like this. So that's what we're going to do, using the very tip of your brush tip. We're just very lightly adding texture. That's kind of the same thing you do when you color hair. So if you can color hair, then you can color fur. You just have to think about the direction of it a little more than you do with hair. Legs. Now if you're using a darker color, I'm using the base color so it's not such an apparent mess, but if you're using a darker color like we're going to, using these flicking motions, you want to start in the darkest area and flick out into your lightest area. That way, where your brush tip first lands is going to be the biggest dot, so you want that in your darker area. It helps keep your light source consistent. So now you can see he's getting a lot of fuzzy texture. Next, I'm going to add a little bit more with E87. Like I said, flick from the dark areas out. And I'm not going to add as much because I don't want to ruin the shading that I already had gone and added in earlier by adding too much of my darker colors in the highlight area. And fur is also a lot like hair, that if you just keep layering the texture, you'll get a really neat, more detailed look as well. And then I'm going to add just a smidge more in the very shadowy portions here with E89. like I said before, just to reinforce our light source. Alright, now if you don't like the texture being so visible, you can go back with your base color and blend it in. But I kind of like the look he's got right now. So I'm going to quickly take Y13 and give him his yellow eyes. And now you could call it done here, or you could take the E49 color that we pulled out in the beginning and give him some stripes. Now you want to add it in the same direction that your fur goes to make it more lifelike. I'm just adding it in the same kind of flicking motion that we added all our texture. If you don't know where to put the stripes, again, you can take a look at some stock photography to give you a better look and idea where you can add some stripes to your kitty. Different breeds all have different looks, so there's probably no right or wrong answer to the question. Give him a little straight tail. And there we go. I hope this will help you when you go to color your kitties from the Clever Kitty set.